think back to your favorite song, whether it be country, pop, or rock, no matter what genre it is. Have you ever thought about maybe where the roots came from in that specific genre or specific song of music? Um, in this speech, I'm going to be explaining how jazz music has actually affected pop, country, and rock, specifically in those three genres. Starting with pop, I would like to explain how jazz is actually still included in pop music, especially with artists like Bruno Mars. For example, in his song Uptown Funk, there is multiple jazz instruments, including mostly brass and saxophones included, playing the main line, and I would like to show an example of that. As you can hear in the background, there's multiple jazz instruments that are included. Another subgenre of pop would actually be Latin, or you can think of Shakira or the recent hit Despacito that came out. This actually comes from Latin or Afro-Cuban jazz styles, and let's see an example of that. Well, we've got Despacito. And you can actually still hear the very thick Latin styles that are involved in that, and even in Shakira's music, who she actually goes back and forth between Spanish songs and American English songs. She still has the same style back and forth. It's still the same Latin. Next, I would like to speak about country. There's actually more in country than pop. If you think back maybe to the days of think about an old Western, when you say you're entering in, an old Western bar, there's always a pianist in there playing. And that specific genre of music, while it didn't have a name back then, is known as ragtime. And one of the biggest artists of the ragtime era is Scott Joplin. And I'm going to show you his Make Believe Rag, which is pretty much exactly what you would hear in that. And that's an example of an early roots of country music that has the same chord progression and same stylistic integrity of modern day country music. Or maybe if you think back a little bit older, like Johnny Cash, it has a lot of similarities to it. A subgenre of country is actually going to be bluegrass. And when you think of bluegrass, you wouldn't connect jazz music at all. But there's actually a lot of ties that comes to it, especially when it comes to improv, because it's just people basically making up a melody as they play, especially in bluegrass. And when you think of bluegrass, probably the most country bluegrass instrument I can think of is a banjo. And there's actually there's a full jazz genre specifically written for banjo. While it's not my favorite, it still exists, and I'm going to show you an example of that. And I'm sure you can understand why it's not my favorite. Next, I would like to talk about rock, and this is actually the most influence of jazz music. If you think about jazz, there's actually a genre of jazz known as soul, and this actually came from in the African American community, and back when there were slaves, they actually sang music, and the music that they sang together was actually soul music. And Elvis Presley is a big example of this, because he actually took soul music, and it was actually gospel music that he had learned from his religious days, and he actually infused it into a rock style. And it has the exact same band makeup as a traditional blues band. And I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to explain it while I'm actually playing the song. And this is one of his most famous songs. So if you hear here, he actually intros with a piano, and you can hear the bells coming in, and there's always going to be an acoustic guitar playing, and there's going to be an electric guitar that comes in later on, and there's always the drum set to keep the beat going, and the bass guitar, of stand-up bass in this. And usually, sometimes in a blues, you have the tenor singing over, which is going to be Elvis. And he started an entire genre that actually progressed into the Beatles picking it up later on, and just progressing it even more. And they progressed that on to when the Rolling Stones actually began, and they progressed it even more into modern day rock. And that's going to be pretty much wrapping up what I had to speak about. I hope you got a little bit more insight on the roots of your different genres, whether it be country, rock, pop, whether you don't like country or rock, or you love pop, or vice versa. Maybe you get a little bit more appreciation of where it all came from. Thank you.